Let's
And we
start.
have
Boker Tov, good morning. We're getting closer to the holiday of redemption, Pesach. And there's a beautiful saying, B'chol dar vadar chayiv adam liros es atzmo ke'ilu hu yatzam mitzrayim. That in every generation, we have to look at ourselves as we just left Egypt. In other words, there's a journey that we have to take. Mitzrayim, the Hebrew word for Egypt, comes from limitations, meitzar ugvul, things that hold us back in life. So when we get ready for Pesach, besides burning the chametz and changing over to new dishes and buying all the Pesach products, it's a time where we also have to evaluate what's holding me back in my life. Is it people I surround myself with? Is it circumstances of my career or my job or people, friends who I should be really not distancing myself from, or situations in my life, or toxic people or situations? So Pesach is a time, yes, we have to eradicate the chametz and the crumbs and vacuum and change and kosher the oven and the gas range and everything we need, but it also is a time of personal work, personal reflection. And we're going to talk about Pesach, but we're also going to talk about the Torah portion because the Torah portion so connects, and not by coincidence, to Pesach. What's the Torah portion? Anybody know? It's the new third book of the Torah. We finished Genesis, Bereshis. We finished Exodus, Shemos. And now we're on the third book of the Torah called, anybody know? Vayikra, Leviticus. Leviticus, the third book of the Torah. And the book of the Vayikra is the story of the offerings brought in the tabernacle, the offerings later brought in the holy temple, the Beit HaMikdash. What were these offerings? Incense, meal, meal. For the poorer people, they offered the meal. They made like patties out of it. And then, of course, the animals that they brought. If a person sinned accidentally, you hurt somebody, accidentally you transgressed on a
get
mitzvah,
through.
you brought an offering to the Kohen, and the Kohen would bring it onto the altar, and like a barbecue, the blood would be sprinkled on the altar. There was a whole ceremony, and the Kohanim got to take home this delicious roasted barbecue. And of course, some parts were burnt for God. The fire came down from heaven onto the altar, and the meat from the ritually slaughtered animal was burnt. So some parts were allowed to be eaten, some parts got completely burnt, and the blood was sprinkled on the altar. And the Torah describes the mitzvahs of bringing offerings as a decree. We don't really understand it. Is God hungry? Does God really need a barbecue? A Labor Day barbecue? Why would we bring offerings?
Why?
So we're going to analyze a little bit about it because it seems very kind of maybe like more like those tribes and the cults who brought in those days, the different nations brought human sacrifice and definitely animal sacrifice. So it seems similar, and you wonder, is this what God wanted from us? So one commentary says something interesting, that time, in those times and places, human sacrifice by the nations of the world was very common.
Going through, please.
If it didn't rain, they would bring a child,
My
an
daughter's
offering to their God, so to speak. If there was a plague, they would sacrifice another person to appease the gods. It was very barbaric and cruel. And of course, the Torah forbids sacrifice, human sacrifice. And yet, it seems like God is asking us for offerings of animals. Is there too much of a correlation? Is it reminiscent of those nations who brought sacrifices for everything?
good.
But the answer is So the commentaries say, so in those days, when you brought a offering to the Beis Hamikdash, it was not a foreign thing because everyone was bringing sacrifices. It was like a societal thing. And surely bringing an animal offering to God as a gift is an acceptable thing. How do we know? Because God said so. And then if you look at it as when you're barbecuing your London broil and your ribeye on your grill, do you ever look at yourself, oh my gosh, I'm a barbarian? No. Because if you take a kosher piece of meat and it's koshered and it's slaughtered properly and you make a bracha and you eat it, it's perfectly permissible. Food was meant to be elevated. The sparks, it's a mitzvah to take a chicken, a meat, and make a bracha and eat it so you have energy. And the animal is elevated. It's godly sparks have elevated. If you again take a kosher piece of meat and make a bracha and eat it in a normal way to give yourself joy and strength and energy from a holiday table, a Shabbat table. It's a beautiful thing to have a nice roast, a nice brisket, right? So if you look at it in those terms, bringing an offering was the same thing. It's not barbaric to bring a cow. It's done in a ritually delicate manner. The cow is not tortured, God forbid. As a matter of fact, if an animal feels pain when the shochet is slaughtering it, you're not allowed to use it. It's then put aside as non-kosher meat. So there's very strict rules. So then bringing an offering was not a foreign thing for the nation of Israel because all the nations were sacrificing humans. This was almost a very positive thing. God forbid to sacrifice a human, but an animal in the name of God is permissible. So does everybody understand the context here? What I'm trying to show? That
Yes.
it was not an inhumane thing. It was done in a very refined manner. No one was walking around eating raw meat dripping from their mouths. Like you see in the Vikings and all those movies with the barbarians. Chas v'sholom is done in a very elegant manner. After a woman gave birth to a child, her husband went to the temple and brought an offering to thank God for the child. So it was done as a gift to God. And why God wanted it, say that again?
I didn't know that they ate, the special people ate the offering.
The Kohanim was their reward because they don't have jobs. God gave them many different rewards. One of them, they got to take home the barbecue meat.
I mean, that's a beautiful concept that
Yeah.
there's a birth and you're joyful. It's like you're giving tzedakah.
Excellent.
And not even knowing who it's going to. And they don't know, like.
Yeah. Well, you know that the Kohanim had that special privilege of taking home the meat that was roasted, that was not burnt.
Becca.
So now
Rebecca,
if you look at it as a
way.
giant barbecue, by the way, my husband gave me this perspective a few years ago. I was teaching about it and I found it so alien and so almost I felt like, why? Like it's, I envisioned this whole scene, but my husband said it was like a barbecue. Do you ever feel bad about a barbecue? So it was the same idea. So he gave me this perspective, understanding it. Now the Kabbalah says something even deeper. Now we don't have the Beis Hamikdash. We're not bringing offerings. So the sages established Neshama Parms Fasenu. How do we bring an offering? Now we pray. And in our prayers, if you notice, there's always reference to the offerings that we used to bring. And on Sunday, they brought this offering. And on Yom Kippur, they brought this offering. And on Shabbos, they brought this offering. So there's always a reference in the prayers to the offerings. But the Alter Rebbe, who wrote Hasidus, Jewish mysticism based on Kabbalah, says something very beautiful that I feel we could all relate to, and I feel I relate to this, that every person has two souls, the godly soul and the animalistic soul. The body and the soul, but as God, an animalistic soul. And there's a tug and a pull. The godly soul wants to connect to God, spirituality, holiness. And the animalistic soul is exactly a little bit like an animal. We have passions, We have desires. We have pleasures we want to appease. And it pulls us in the opposite direction. So
Isn't it
yeah,
like what you said about the soul in the heavens? If we do the right thing, we feed that soul
yes.
or
And
some
that also more that there's a counterpart in the
a
spiritual.
counterpart.
Yes.
But that's
So
different than what you're saying here.
yeah, but you know, it all connects. That's why we take this so seriously because everything we do here affects the spiritual realm. It's not like what stays in Connecticut, what happens in Connecticut stays in Connecticut. No, when a Jew does an act, it doesn't stay in Connecticut. There's a spiritual counterpart for the negative and for the positive. You do a negative act, it's not just down here, it's going to impact the spiritual world. So when you tame your beast, so to speak, when you elevate your animalistic soul and you guide it in the right direction, and you don't give in to every desire, every pleasure, every want, just because your animalistic soul wants this, but you subdue it, right? You pass, for example, a hot dog stand. It's not kosher. You really want it. The smell is so delicious. You know you have the kosher hot dog at home. Do you give in to the animalistic soul because, oh my God, that smell and I'm starving and I'm so hungry and it's just for now and I'm not in my house and I'm sure God will forgive me? Or do you say, you know what? I'm hungry, I'm starving, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till I get the kosher hot dog. I'm using a very simple example. But the animalistic soul desires things, desires pleasures that may not align with what the godly soul tells us. You desire, for example, to have an extramarital affair. You need a little excitement. You need a little more pleasure. It's boring at home. All this, we take the beast within us, so to speak, and I'm not trying to be crude, and we tame it. We subdue it. We utilize it for good things. You have passion for something, use that passion for something positive. You're looking for pleasure, find pleasure in the good things in life that have positive results. And that's the Alter Rebbe said, this is how we translate the concept of bringing an offering to God. We take our creative energy, our talents, our thoughts, our deeds, our words, and we direct them towards positive, towards godly pursuits. And remember, godly pursuits is also doing your laundry. You know why? Because it's all for the purpose of living your life. You can't sit in the corner and pray all day and say, I'm a holy roller, and then the whole life falls apart. You're not making money because you're not paying your bills. You're not doing laundry. No one has anything to wear. You're not cooking a meal. There's nothing to eat. The house isn't clean because you're a holy roller. No. In your mundane life, you imbue it with godliness. Because remember that even one act of connecting to God, like Moda'ani, then your whole day takes on a whole different paradigm. And I know I've said this so many times that even when you're trading stocks, answering the phone, writing emails, whatever profession you're in, or doing the mundane things of shopping, laundry, cleaning,
Coming through,
cooking,
please.
right?
Thank you.
Now it's all for a higher
My
purpose,
daughter's, my
right?
daughter's behind you. Thank you.
Even in the Beis Hamikdash, when the Kohanim brought
Thank
the
you.
offerings, they had to sweep up, clean up, take out the ashes, scrub down the altars. Even the holy acts are combined with mundane acts. That's life. We have things we have to do out of, oh, is this holy? But when a person uses their godly soul and connects a godly soul, even what you call unholy becomes holy. Because your whole life is geared towards what am I offering this world? What am I offering God? What do I have that I could share and utilize in the right way? So the Alter Rebbe says this is what it means to bring an offering in 2026. Means you take your animalistic soul and sometimes unhealthy pleasures and desires, and you subdue it and you unite it with your godly soul, And then those passions, you're passionate about positive things. You're passionate about helping others. You're passionate about being loving and kind. You're passionate about improving yourself. You're passionate, and then you find pleasure in that because it's such a positive thing. That's how you now bring an offering in 2026. No one is asking us to set up an altar in the backyard and start bringing up cows and oxen. Cows and oxen.
Or squirrels and chipmunks.
Yeah, but it was only kosher animals in the temple.
I don't know, a squirrel and a chipmunk, why would they not be unkosher?
Because the gods enumerated the kosher birds, the kosher mammals, the kosher fish. And till this day, it's a wonderful question, Debbie. Till this day, they have not discovered a new species that doesn't fall into one of the categories enumerated by the Torah. Like there's suddenly no new bird that you could say, well, is that kosher? So God enumerates which birds are kosher, fish that have fins and scales, animals that chew their cuds and have split hoofs, both. And you know those kosher animals are kosher. There is no new species that came up that you could say, well, we have to find out if this animal is now kosher or not.
That's interesting because I think the squirrel and the chipmunk might be similar to the mouse or the rat.
Same family, you're saying?
Yeah, same family.
They're not kosher.
No.
Those animals are not kosher. Like insects are mostly not kosher. There's a few that are. I don't have the list in front of me.
But when you think about their population, insects and those particular animals, I mean, that's a little scary thought about, because they say that they could take over insects like ants.
Yeah, and we have to mitigate with exterminators. But everything that God created has a purpose, provided it's a good purpose. But just because God created ants doesn't mean you can't put ant traps when they get into all your food. You know what I mean? So everything has a purpose, but within reason how we interact with those items. For example, God created a non-kosher animal, but not for a Jew to eat, for a non-Jew to eat. Because we could discuss kosher another time, but one of the reasons is that Kabbalah explains when you eat something, it becomes part of you. The discovering women who took certain medications that impacted the fetus, the child they were carrying, it impacted their health. So everything you imbue has an impact. So when you eat a food that God said is not permissible to a Jew, the attributes of that animal become part of you. And many of the non-kosher animals the Torah describes are predators. They have predatory nature. God does not want us to eat animals that have predatory nature or cruel nature because we are meant to be refined people. So that's one reason about kosher, even though kosher is considered a mitzvah of a decree where there's no reason given. God said you have to eat kosher, here's the rules. But doesn't mean we don't pursue reasoning. It's just God doesn't give the reason. But we always pursue a reasoning why. Why did God say not to eat these animals and eat those animals? And there's a reason why chewing the cud and split hoof, and we'll do it another time. So now this is a perspective of what it means when you're bringing an offering. Is the physical, when a person commits a sin accidentally, they brought an offering to the Beis HaMikdash. A woman gave birth. She wanted to give thanks. Person was, God forbid, in a terrible accident. They want to give thanks. Many, many reasons why people brought offerings. And then there were the required offerings for the different holidays that people brought their goat and so on to the Holy Temple. The Kohen would take it and bring it on their behalf. It was not a free-for-all. There was a routine. There was procedures and so on.
And everyone had these animals? I mean, what about the poor people?
That's why they had meal offerings. And also, no one, just like now, someone is poor and can't afford matzah, wine for Pesach, we help them. There's a tzedakah fund. They had
So
tzedakah.
those offerings went to the poor as well?
Yes, from the temple, no. The meat went to the Kohen, but they were what we call Gemilas Chasadim funds,
Uh-huh.
tzedakah funds to help people.
But those people couldn't bring any offerings to the,
Why? If there was a Gemilas Chasadim, imagine Yankel didn't have any money for the goat that he had to bring. He went to the fund. They would give him money to purchase a goat, and he would bring a goat.
I see.
So the nation of Israel is set up to help each other. If someone has more financially and you have less, we're required to help each other. So it's a beautiful scenario.
So
You
no one is really excluded.
But people, you wanted to do it. You wanted to. It was an honor to go
Right.
to go up 3 times a year and bring your offering and pray at the temple. It was a gift to see that revelation of God every single holiday. It was something extraordinary.
It's just that I would think that having an animal is a big deal and you have to have money to have, a few animals on your property.
But they would not necessarily did they have it on their property. Just like now, right? The Torah says on the holiday of Sukkot, take a lulav, an etrog, willow, and myrtle. No one has a myrtle tree. They go to the store on Kingston Avenue, on Main Street, wherever you live, and the Jewish vendors sell you these items in those days too. Oh, they knew the goat. Everyone's going to need a goat. There was a goat company. It was it was a right similar. Think of it as an industry.
I thought it was like in their yard, their animals that they tended to for their.
Well, if you owned a farm, you were lucky.
Right.
You had your goats. But if you didn't own a farm, you were not in the agricultural department, you were in manufacturing, or you were a politician, you had to buy a goat just like everybody else. You
I
purchased.
see.
Yeah. So that's the concept of an offering, which is Parshas Vayikra. So now I want to go a little bit into a different direction. I just wanted to give you this insight because it's something I always struggled with understanding the offering. And I finally did a little research, and I hope that I was able to convey what exactly it meant to bring an offering.
Put it in all the way, Mom.
And remember, it was, again, if somebody transgressed accidentally. So this rabbi is walking home from shul Friday night, and he's passing a beautiful home, and the drapes are open, and he sees a bunch of his congregants are playing cards with money on the table. So he knocks on the door, no answer. So he presses the handle, and the door opens. He goes in. He says, Yidden, friends, did you not realize that tonight is Friday night? They said, oh, no, we know it's Friday night. He said, did you not realize it was Shabbos? They said, no, we realized it was Shabbos. So he says, so maybe you didn't know that on Shabbos you don't play with cards and gamble. They said, no, we know you're not allowed to play with cards and gamble. So he said, well, maybe you didn't know you're not allowed to use money to gamble on Shabbos. And they said, no, we knew. We knew. So he says to them, so is there anything you could defend yourself was accidental here? He's trying to give them a merit. They go, yeah, we left the drapes open. So the offerings of the temple were given if somebody accidentally sinned, but not if you intentionally. And they left their drapes open. All right, so the lesson here, don't leave your drapes open. That's a joke. Okay. So now the word Vayikra means call. God is calling out to Moshe. Vayikra Hashem, or Moshe, God calls out to Moshe. So the word call. So now the Torah tells a story that Moshe, who was writing the Torah, how did it work? God dictated, and Moshe wrote the Torah scroll with a quill and pen, with a quill and ink. So when Moshe saw that the first pasuk, God says, called to him, Moshe was called Anav Mikol Adam, the most humble of all people. He left out the aleph at the end of the word Vayikra, which now means that God chanced upon me, not called, chanced. So God says, why did you leave out the aleph, Moshe? He says, because God, I don't want it to be that I'm writing that God called to me, which means I'm special. If God calls to you and you hear God's voice and God appears to you, you're a prophet, you're a holy person, you're a special person. So Moshe is saying to God, I don't want to write in the Torah that I was called by God. It shows I'm something extraordinary. But if you write Vayikra, God chanced upon me, like in another instance where God chanced upon different prophets, then it's not so obvious that I have a special relationship with God, and then people could be envious. And who am I to have a special relationship with God? I'm just Moshe. So God said, no, you have to add an aleph because I want people to know about the special relationship I have with you. But make it a small aleph. We'll do a compromise. We'll make Vayikra, but with a small aleph at the end. So that's why when you open up the Torah scroll, you might say, oh, did the scribe run out of ink? And the answer is no. But it teaches us the conversation, the Medrash tells us, between God and Moshe. Now, why would Moshe be so humble? I mean, didn't he realize his greatness? Think about who Moshe was. He was raised in the palace of the king. He could have been a king of Egypt. He killed an Egyptian soldier. He had to run away. And then he's summoned by God by the burning bush. He takes the Jews out of Egypt. He gives them the Torah. He hears God's voice. He's the only one who saw, metaphorically speaking, the back of God's head wearing tefillin. And this Moshe says, you know what? I don't want people to think I'm great. Does that make sense? Did not Moshe know his greatness? But this shows you that true leaders are truly humble. Moshe says to God, if someone else was chosen to do my job, they would have been really great, greater than I could ever be. So Moshe always looked at himself in the mirror and said, if someone else got my job, they would have done such a better job than me. They would have been even greater, better, a much better leader. He had such a sense of humility that even in his greatness, he said, if someone else got this job, they would have been better than me at it. He had tremendous humility. And this is a sign of a great leader. A great leader, the greater they are, the closer they are to God, the more humility. Why? It's counterintuitive, but think about it. The more they get closer to God, the more they realize how small we really are. How small we really are. So greatness is not walking around saying, I'm the best. True greatness is realizing no matter how great you are, no matter what great gifts God gave you, you don't demean yourself and say, I'm a nobody, I'm a nothing, what could I do? But you realize with humility, as great as you are, look how much greater, Almighty God, look how much more there is to accomplish in my life. That's a sign of true greatness. And that's why you see also with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when his father-in-law passed away, he was the obvious choice to be the next Rebbe, and yet he refused. He didn't see himself as a Rebbe. He saw himself as an introverted, private person, quietly doing for the Jewish people. But then the Rebbitzin said to him, to her husband, she said, if you don't assume the leadership, all my father's work will be for naught. There's no one to continue it. So when the Rebbe saw that he had a responsibility, not out of arrogance, but out of humility, the Rebbe became the next Rebbe. So great leaders have that humility. And that's what makes them great. Because humility means that you don't walk around, you're not good enough for me. I can't talk to you. You're not on the celebrity list. If I'm caught on the front page talking to a simple person, it will kill my reputation. A great leader knows how to lead. They understand that they have talents to offer, but they also understand the concept of humility, that I'm only a leader because God wants me to. And I'm only doing this because I need to help my people, lead my people. So the small aleph, God says, you think I don't want people to know about our special relationship that I call to you like to no one else? But we'll make a small aleph. And that highlights the humility of Moshe. So to me, it's such a beautiful insight. I want to share one more thing connected, that in the book of Divrei Hayom, in the book of Chronicles, which is part of the writings of the Torah, It starts off talking about Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, and Adam is a big Aleph. Adam in Hebrew, Aleph, big Aleph. And look what happens to Adam. He eats from the tree of knowledge and he's banished from the Garden of Eden. So sometimes greatness is our biggest downfall. When you think you're great, you sometimes stumble and fall. The ego gets in the way. So here's an example of a big Aleph. Adam, the first person ever lived on earth. And yet he and Chava stumble and fall because they lack a little bit of that humility that they needed. Yeah, they need the humility. So when it's a small Aleph, doesn't mean Moshe is any smaller. It's highlighting humility. That's what true humility is, the small Aleph. And it's interesting because we come to the holiday of Pesach. Why do we eat matzah and not bread? What's the difference? Anybody think about how we make it? How is bread made and how is matzah made?
One is quick and one takes a long time.
Okay, what else?
Right. One is rich and full and one is...
Very good. Rich and full. Yeast. What does yeast do?
Rises.
Matzah?
Flat.
Pesach is a time you eat matzah. Eat matzah. Why? Matzah symbolizes humility, anivos. Bread symbolizes arrogance. It rises. Pesach is a time when we recognize that humility is such an important trait, and we focus on our humility in the holiday of Pesach. So you see, everything we do, all the rituals, they have reasonings, right? We rushed out of Egypt. We didn't have time to bake bread. The bread couldn't rise, so it ended up being matzah. And that's a very beautiful reason that we eat matzah. But Kabbalah teaches us even more. That now we're not rushing anywhere. We have plenty of time to bake bread for Pesach. But Pesach is not only they ate matzah because they were rushing. They ate matzah because of humility. It's a humbling experience to recognize that there's a God that runs the world, that you're not in charge. It's a time to subdue your ego. It's a time to recognize, there's more than what I need, I want. I have to look at the big picture. And that's why it's called the bread of faith. Why is it called bread of faith? Because to have belief in God, you have to be humble. If you think you run the world, you can't believe in God. Who's God? I run the world. It's my decisions that make impact. I'm the master of my own fate. And you deny that there is a bigger picture in the world, that there's divine providence, that God has a plan. And you have to align yourself with that. Ego interferes in marriages and relationships. Why should I do what he wants? What about what I want? Why should I do what she wants? What about what I need? Why is it always about her? Why is it always about the kids? But when you subdue ego and you make the me into the we, there's a much more cohesive life. It's a much more cohesive life. So Pesach comes to teach us humility, because humility is what helps us build relationships. And humility also allows light in. If you're closed and it's only about you and nothing else comes into your life, you don't grow in your life. It's a very selfish, self-absorbed life. Does everybody get my drift? So matzah is about humility. Vayikra is about the small aleph. We have to find humility in our lives. And there's a beautiful quote that I was looking for, which I found it. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. Doesn't mean, oh, I'm nobody, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I have no talents, everybody's greater than me. It means you know your value. You know your greatness. You know your talents. You know you're valuable. You know you mean something. God doesn't want you to be, oh, I'm a nothing. Humility doesn't mean you're a nothing. Humility means you're thinking of yourself less. You're thinking of others more. How could I be part of the bigger picture? How could I be a leader? How could I contribute to the family and to the universe? That's true humility. God doesn't want you walking around downtrodden. I'm nobody. Okay, step on me again, please, because I'm really nothing. A person who has such low self-esteem cannot function. You never feel you could do anything. You have such low self-esteem. Nobody's going to look at me. Nobody cares about it. Nobody listens to me. I'm a nothing. If you feel you're nothing and you don't feel you belong in this world, that's also horrible. That's not humility. That's depression. That's depression. That's depression. That you need help. Person that feels no self-value is horrible. So Pesach is not here to say you're not valuable. Quite the contrary. You're very valuable. That's why you need humility. Because humility lets light in. Humility lets other people into your life. Humility is listening to other people's opinions and valuing other people. That's what humility is. Even Moshe, remember when the daughters of Tzlofchad come to him and they say to him, we don't have any brothers. Our father died. Do we not get an inheritance in the land of Israel? So Moshe said, I don't know. Let me ask God. That's humility. Not, oh, well, girls, I don't think so. Go get married, then we'll talk about it. Moshe recognizes that some things you don't know, you need to get advice. And he asks God, and God says they're absolutely right. They get an inheritance, just like the men do. That's how we know women inherit. So this Torah portion teaches us humility. And I think it ties in also to offerings, because when you acknowledge you made a mistake, you bring an offering. If you keep denying you made a mistake and you can't own up to your mistakes, then you'll never bring an offering, because why would I bring an offering? I didn't make a mistake. It's not my fault. He pulled me, she pulled me, they said it, we said it, the store was closed, the car crashed. We always have an excuse. So Vayikra is about humility. Pesach is about humility. And boy, is it humbling to clean for Pesach. And there's another beautiful thing about Vayikra, is that there's a custom when a little boy turns 3 and a little girl turns 3. Little girl turns 3, she begins lighting Shabbos candles. A little boy turns 3, you wrap him in a talus and you bring him to Cheder. And this custom prevails. Cheder means like yeshiva. And you open up the book of Vayikra. You put honey by the first word Vayikra, and the little boy licks the honey off the page. That's part of there's a whole ceremony that's part of it. So you ask, why Vayikra? Why not Genesis? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Isn't that a more appropriate Torah portion? To have a little boy lick the honey? Because you're telling him, look who created the world, God. They bring him to Vayikra, it's talking about offerings. What's the answer? And the answer is, first of all, Vayikra means call. God called out to Moshe. Each and every one of us is a little Moses. We have Moshe in ourselves. Every Yid is a shtickle Moshe, it says. Every Jew has part of Moses in us, because Moses took us out of Egypt and gave us the Torah. So we all have God calling to us. We all have God. You just have to hear God calling you. You have to be receptive to what God's message is to you. So we bring a little boy to the Vayikra to lick the honey. You're saying God is calling to you too. And when you talk about the offerings bring purity to a person. When you bring an offering, it purifies you. And who is more pure than a child? So because the Torah talks about purifying and a little child is pure, this is the Torah portion where you bring the child into Cheder with this Torah portion of purity, because children are so pure. So very pure. So remember, your deeds, your talents are your offerings to this world. What can I offer the world? What can I offer God? What did God give me that I could share or utilize for a good purpose? That's the question of the day. God is calling to you. Do you hear God's voice in your life? Or do you say, God never spoke to me? Maybe to my rabbi, he's holy. Maybe to the rabbi's rabbi. But to me, I'm a plain nobody. No, God calls to everybody because everybody has Moses. If God called to Moses, God is calling to you. Question is, can you hear God's voice in your world, in your life? You have to be open to it. You have to be open to it. And then the question is, how are you open to it? Does anybody know? This is my own opinion. This is what I think, that when opportunities present themselves, that's God calling to you. When an opportunity presents itself to do something good, to do something positive, to do something right, that's Vayikra. It's not complicated. And oh my gosh, God called me to climb up Mount Sinai and carve out the tablets. God could be calling you for a silly thing. A friend called you for a favor. Your children need something. It's not convenient. You're in your job and you see an opportunity to impact somebody. It's all God calling to you. So we just have to open ourselves to realizing that we're called all the time. You know, when someone cuts you off on the highway, what's your instinct? Curse, yell, honk, flash your lights, right? Don't. Take the high road. Take the high road. Maybe honk so they don't hit you. You know, in New York, everybody's a crazy honker. In Connecticut, I never honk. Why? Because I might know the person. Oh, Freida honked at me. She's no Rebbitzin. She cut me off. She's no Rebbitzin. You know, whenever somebody cuts in front of the car to cross, it's not the red light, it's not their light, but I always stop because I think to myself, you know what? Let them cross. It's not my problem that they're not following the light. Let them cross, you know. So now let's share a little bit about Pesach. Good? So everybody, this has to be interactive. I want you to tell me what you like about Pesach, why you celebrate Pesach, what's on your Pesach menu. Share a little bit about Pesach. Maybe I can get inspiration. So when I finish the class and I have to get into my kitchen cabinets, I'll feel more inspired. So share with me, share with me. I'd love to hear, why do you celebrate Pesach? What does Pesach give you? Do you enjoy it? Do you dread it? Do you hope Uncle Irving doesn't RSVP this year? Or Aunt Sadie?
Yes to all of the above. I love it. I have a
Yeah.
mini little nervous breakdown right before. And then right when everyone sits down and everything's perfect, it's magical. So
That's beautiful. I love that. Anybody else want to share? What's your favorite
I
Pesach
find it a
food?
little stressful, actually,
Yeah,
because it's important to me, but everyone has their own lists and agendas, and sometimes I can't always accommodate everyone, and it gets a little, and it runs out. The meaning runs out of it if I'm not careful. So I really struggle to make sure it's meaningful.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. But you know, can I add something to that? Listen, I'm a mother of children and now the grandchildren, and it's very chaotic. But you know what? That's how it's meant to be. How could you tell a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old to not pour 14 cups of grape juice and break the matzah and make chaos? And I started to realize that is the Seder. That's the beauty of the Seder. Otherwise, I should go to a senior home where everyone is
It's not
sitting
the
in a row,
kids, it's the
right?
adults. It's not
Oh,
the
it's
kids.
adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what we do? You just keep going. That's what I do. Sometimes your kids could be a negative Nancy, a child that's always kvetching. And I
Never,
just smile.
never.
And
I've never had a problem with that.
Oh,
And if it did, it wouldn't bother me. That's not the
oh, yeah.
problem.
Okay.
So I have a suggestion for an adult Seder, although we're toning it down again because we have grandkids. So buy some kosher for Passover potato vodka, and every time someone answers a question, you get a drink. It
Right, and I
works
love
magic.
it.
They love it. It makes it very funny. Just everyone has to sleep over after that, but that's okay.
I
Or
love
take
the way you said
Ubers.
kosher Pesach potato vodka. That's amazing. I want to remind everybody that, there's a lot of fours. There's 4 questions, right? The Manishtana. There's 4 cups of wine or grape juice. There's 4 expressions for God saving us from Egypt. What else is there 4 of? Whatever. And the 4 is the 4 matriarchs. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. That the whole foundation of the Seder and Pesach and coming out of Egypt was in the merit of the Jewish women. So know that we are the foundation of the Pesach and the foundation of the Seder. And we set the tone. If you're smiley, happy, present, not in the kitchen stirring the soup, by the Seder, all the women have to be at the Seder table the entire time. Either get a maid or let your husband go in the kitchen and stir the pot. Pesach is the woman's holiday. In our merit, we were redeemed. We should all be drinking, eating at the table with everyone else. And if you're serving, everyone else should help you. So sit at the Seder table. Shabbos, like when I have guests, you hardly see me at the table. I'm stirring the salad, and then I'm serving the soup, and then I'm back for the chicken, and then I have to bring the kugel, and then this one wanted ice. But Pesach is not like that. My husband will not make Kiddush till I'm at the table with him. And the whole Seder, you sit at the table. When it's time for the meal and you have to go show the waitress what to do, it's one thing. But you should be present at the Seder. That's why the opening line is Kol Dichman Yesav Yifsach. It says, all who want, come and eat. Now, let me ask you, did you ever invite a guest for dinner at the dinner? Or you usually call a week before, a day before, say, hi, Dorothy, I hope you're going to join us at the Seder. How does the opening say, all who want, come and eat? In other words, invite guests. Which guest is going to come the last minute? They'll be insulted. Why, you couldn't invite me a day before? You couldn't invite me a week before? Oh, you need an extra guest? No, thank you. What the Haggadah is telling us, invite yourself to the Seder. You be present at the Seder. Many of us sit at the Seder, we're not present at the Seder. We're thinking about the kitchen, what's going to be after the Seder, did the dessert come out right? Be present, invite yourself, allow yourself to experience the beauty of the family, the kids, the chaos. So the Haggadah is not speaking about strangers, speaking about you. You need to be there. Make sure you feel invited to the Seder. Many times we feel, oh my gosh, I'm going to sit through this now. And everyone feels that energy. And guess what? If Shabbos starts 7:30, the Seder starts, right? The first night. Candle lighting is whatever time. I don't have my calendar. At 6:00, sit yourself down and eat dinner. Because if you're starving, unhappy, and hungry, and ravenous at your own Seder, you're not going to enjoy it. I always put out food at 4 p.m, and I make everyone eat. I don't want any kvetchy adults at my Seder. I don't want any kvetchy kids at my Seder. I want everyone fed and happy, and you'll eat again later. Of course, you don't give them the traditional foods. You don't give them anything that's on the Seder plate because that's supposed to be special. You don't give them matzah, but you give chicken, you give gefilte fish, you can make a salad, you can make them some kosher for Passover pasta, with the gluten-free. You can make them a potato kugel, not a lukshen kugel, potato kugel, vegetables. And you put out a platter and you tell everyone go eat something in the kitchen now. I don't want anyone kvetching. And that's very practical. In order to be present, you have to feel happy. Get your manicure, your pedicure, your new outfit, your hair done, your lipstick, everything. So when you're at the Seder, you feel happy about yourself. You're not in your t-shirt covered with oil because you were frying the latkes, whatever. So you put yourself in a state of mind where all who want, come and eat me. I need to be present. And then everyone will feel happier. It's an energy that translates. If you're unhappy, everyone is unhappy. We set the tone. It's a lot of responsibility, but we do set the tone. So make sure to feel good about yourself. If you have to cook one less brisket, so there's one less brisket, big deal. Fill up on the matzah, everybody. There's nothing to eat. Make an announcement. I'm sure that's not going to be the problem. So that's one thing I found for myself. By the way, I'm sharing what I share with myself. And also now look at the Seder and Pesach as an experience for personal growth. Why do you drink 4 cups of wine? Shabbos is 1 cup of wine. Why does Pesach have so many nuances? Because when you drink wine, what happens to you? Ooh, you relax, your tongue unfolds, you start sharing things, right? You start sharing what you feel, even if it's not politically correct. Because the whole Pesach experience is to get out of those things that hold you back in life. Remember Mitzrayim, limitations, boundaries. When you drink wine, Chassidus explains, your tongue loosens. You feel more able to release tension, anxiety. Now, don't drink 4 cups of wine every day of the week. This is just for Pesach now. Let's not take it to the extreme. And it's an expression of releasing that's what's holding you back in life. It's symbolic of opening up, getting those secrets out that you meant to share, but you couldn't because it was too painful. So by the time the Seder is over and you're ready for Afikomen, you have released some of that pain and trauma in your life. You're able to face things. That's why, what's the last of the 15 steps? Kadesh Orchatz Karpas Yachatz Magid Rachta Motzi Matzah Morar Korech Shulchan Arech Tzafon Beirach Hallel Nirtza. Now Hallel means praising God. What's Nirtza? It's almost a ridiculous end. What's Nirtza? Anybody know what Nirtza is? After Hallel, after you say grace after meals and thank God and drink the last, what do we need Nirtza? Nirtza means that you acknowledge that God accepted your Seder, accepted your relationship. Because think about it in life. What is one of the big things holding us back? I'm not worthy. I'm not accepted for who I am. So we say to God, I hope you accepted the Seder. I hope that I'm acknowledging that I have meaning, that you accept me for who I am. This is who I am, with my flaws, with my faults. And not only are you telling God to accept, you're telling yourself. Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. I'm not worthy. I'm not a good mother. I'm not a good wife. I'm not a good friend. I'm not a good co-worker. We're so hard on ourselves. We're so critical. We look ourselves in the mirror and we see all our terrible faults. So we say to God, did you like my Seder? Can I acknowledge that I am who I am? And you're taking me with the good and the bad, God, because I have a lot of flaws. But there's a lot of good in me too. So Nirtza is looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I am accepting who I am. I'm not going to walk around saying how terrible I am and unworthy I am and how I did this wrong and that wrong. And as Jewish mothers, we have a lot of guilt. My famous joke, what's Jewish Alzheimer's? You forget everything but the guilt. We're always feeling guilty. I didn't do enough. I didn't do good enough. I should have said that. I shouldn't have said that. Why did I do that? I could have done that. It's too late. I'm in my 60s already. It's all over for me. No. Nirtza, we say, God, take me for who I am because I'm accepting myself who I am. I've made peace with my mistakes. I feel better now that I drank the 4 cups of wine and I released some of that tension and guilt and agonizing of what I did wrong and what I could have done. So Pesach, if you allow it, the Seder, that's why I say sit at the table. You can't be in therapy if you're running around the house, mixing your stew. You got to decompress. So by the Seder, you decompress. Sometimes tune out a little bit, you know? You were looking around, you tune out a little bit, you're thinking about yourself and your life, and you release tension, you know? That's what the Seder is. People make it like, oh my gosh, is it holy enough? Am I doing, did I dip right? Did I dip left? Yeah, we do the dippings and the eatings and the structure. But the most important is your personal involvement. And by the way, what does Seder mean? Does anybody know what the Hebrew word Seder means? Go ahead.
Order?
Order. Can I ask you, was there a less orderly, chaotic night than the Seder?
Yeah. But who is supposed to be in the kitchen if you're not in the kitchen?
Okay, so my own balabasta tips. Everything pre-prepared. No cooking during the Seder. Not because you're not allowed to. On Yom Tov, you're actually with a pre-existing flame, you're allowed to cook. You could start cooking when everyone is sitting at the Seder, but then you're missing the whole point. You're missing the whole point. If you're in the kitchen cooking and not experiencing the Seder, what is it's like you know what what's that saying? You fought the battle, you won the battle, but lost the war. No, right. Something like that. Why you it make less food if you can't get ready in time and be at the Seder table. Your presence is more necessary than your gefilte fish. Now, if you can't afford help, I'm not talking about you, Jane, everybody. If we can't afford help, then everyone helps when it comes to mealtime. Why are you leaving the Seder? Why are you less important than your husband, your grandmother, your grandfather, your uncle, and your aunt, and your children? The same way they're sitting at the Seder going through the steps, you're sitting at the Seder. And when it's time for Shulchan Aruch, which is the meal, you all say, okay, I need 3 people to help me bring out the soup. I need 4 people to help me slice the brisket. And everyone goes and brings out the food. But you shouldn't be cooking during the Seder because then there's no Seder. If you're not at the Seder, as far as I'm concerned, there's no Seder. If you're the birthday girl and you're not at your own party because you're busy baking the cake, then there's no party. The party starts when the wife, the balabasta, the queen of the home is at the table. That's just how it is. So you make it the way you best you can. Cook before, have help. If you can't cook, if you can't do that, then everyone in the kitchen with you. You're not the one in the kitchen. You are the star. This is not a man's holiday. This is not a male. The Torah is all about the woman, the feminine energy. The Torah was first taught to the women. I can give you 25 reasons why you're needed at the Seder table. And most of all is because your presence is what creates the energy. You're smiling, you're laughing, you're pointing out, you say, Henry's about to spill the wine, honey, grab the cup. And you're signaling your husband. I'm always signaling and, tweaking my husband around. I say, see the guy over there, Shia, go over to him by the Seder. Go see why he's kvetching. Go find out. It's managing. It's like being the stage manager, I call it. You're sitting at this table and you're like navigating everybody. It's a beautiful thing for the woman to be at the table. It's just a beautiful thing. I'm telling you, someone who's never at the table. Never. You never see me at the table. I'm always in the kitchen. There's no time. But at Pesach, I make it my policy to be at the table. It's like we're the leaders. You can't run a Seder without the woman at the table. That's just basically the story. And I can't say it in any more words than that, And also for you to experience your exodus from Egypt. How are you going to do that in the kitchen? You're going to just feel more enslaved. How are you going to tap into the spiritual energy? A beautiful thing Kabbalah teaches us that every holiday Why do we celebrate Pesach every year? We celebrate it once, genug, because the energy of Pesach comes back every year, and you want to tap into that special energy. You want to grab it. There's a reoccurrence of that energy, just like your birthday. The day you're born is the day that energy comes back. You want to grab into it. That's why you celebrate. So Pesach is that spark. You don't even realize it. You're just grabbing these sparks, and it makes your life so enhanced. You don't even realize all these sparks you're taking in. You know, there's a code of Jewish law that a husband has to buy his wife a gift for Pesach. Do you know that there's a law like that?
No.
Yes. Go
Wow.
ahead. We should print it out and give it to our husbands. He has to
I
buy
like that.
every Pesach, their husbands, every Pesach, they buy their wife a piece of jewelry. It says in the code of Jewish law. There you go. So everything about Pesach is the women, the four women, the four mothers, the whole foundation of Pesach. And it really is, it enhances the whole Pesach thing. I want to share one more thing about Maror. Oh, it's already 11:05. One more thing about Maror, and then we'll close. Why do we eat Maror? Who knows? The bitter herbs.
Remember
the bitterness.
The bitterness. Yeah.
Yeah. But also it teaches us, also talking about the psychological aspect of the Seder, which is what I'm talking about, is when you feel bitterness in your life and you bury it, it just sits there and hurts you, and it's buried. The Haggadah, the Seder, is teaching us you have to release the bitterness. Confront your bitterness. Confront your pain and your trauma and your anger and anything that's holding you back. And if you face the bitterness, you eat that maror, you can overcome it. But if you bury your bitterness, you never confront your life, you never confront those dark parts of yourself, you can't overcome. It just eats away at you. So Pesach, you release your bitterness, you confront things in your life, and you utilize every part of the Seder to make you feel better and grow in your life. So you have the matzah for humility. You have the wines, secrets should come out. You have the maror, confront those things that hold you back. And be present in your life. Be present in your life. That's the greatest gift you can give yourself. Be present. Invite yourself to the Seder. Don't be absentee. And lastly, recognize that the four children of the Seder are us. At times we're angry, like the Russia. We're rebellious. At times we're wise. At times we're baffled. We don't know what to ask. We don't know how to treat things. At times we're dumb. We don't know what, we're apathetic. I don't care about anything. I really don't care about anything. Don't get me into this. I don't care. Know that in your life, you'll have times where you're rebellious, you're wise, you're apathetic. You're disconnected. Know that. Acknowledge it. And don't forget to ask the four questions, because God is your father. So even the children ask the four questions, the adults also have to call out, Father in heaven, I'm asking you the four questions. Now give me an answer. Why is there October 7th? Why is Iran bombing Eretz Yisrael and hurting our people? We have to ask the four questions because we're calling out to our Father in heaven. So we don't relegate the four questions only to the children. Every adult has to ask God, I have four questions, now I need an answer. So with that, we close our class. I hope next Thursday, I must probably have a class. I'm going to try my very best, but I'll keep you notified if not. But I want to wish everybody a wonderful Shabbos.
So much